I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Goa from Quined Games. Goa is a 1 to 4 player tableau building auction game. Yes, I said 1 to 4 player. There is a solo mode. Oh no, our box bandit ran away. I was hoping he'd stick around the whole video. Do not go in those boxes. There's 2 boxes on the corner of the table that if he goes in, they will fall. And the components are not structured in a way that this is going to be good for me. So if I get up in a second, you know what's going on. Anyways, Goa is a 1 to 4 player auction tableau building game. This is a reprint version from Quined. They are putting out a new reprinted version of the game. Also, everything you see here is a prototype, rules and components subject to change, and I'll have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below. Also, this channel is sponsored by Allplay. More about them at the end of the video. But with that said, in Goa, you're basically going to be playing it across 8 rounds. There's going to be 4 rounds in the day phase, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4 rounds in the night phase, 1, 2, 3, 4, for a total of 8 rounds because 2 times 4 is 8. I know that. In the game, you're basically going to be taking auctions every single round in order to acquire the tiles in this grid. We'll talk about how those auctions work in a second, but you basically want those tiles. Then when you're done with that phase, each player is going to take 3 actions. You have 3 actions to carry out on your own personal tableau that usually come down to ways of getting resources and moving up the tracks in order to find your own little unique path to victory. Do all that for 8 rounds, and in the game, see who has the most points from a bunch of different areas. To that end, diving into a bit more detail, the way the auctions work in the game is you're going to have the star player, the person who has this, they'll start with 5 money, everyone else will start with 10, because this is worth coins on its own. Because what you get to do is you get to go ahead and say, I'm going to start an auction over here. Which means the auction is going to be starting from this area of the board. They'll take their marker to indicate that they are the star player, that's their token, and now the next player is going to go here. Why here? Because if you start an auction on the edge of the board, there's only one place you can go, they'll mark that there. But that means the third player does have agency. They can go here, here, or here. Basically, you're working your way adjacent to the previous marker. They're going to go up here, try to get some expedition cards early. The fourth player is going to choose to go over here. Getting this early in the beginning of the round will mean they'll get a scroll every single round. That's going to be an ongoing benefit, which means, well, they're not getting it. They're auctioning those off. And that brings us back to the first player over here, where they can choose the last spot. We're going to choose a 2 over there on that goods tile. That's going to be the board layout before we go into the auctions. Then, starting off with the starting player tile over here, you're going to auction this off. Players are going to, starting with the player to the left of the player whose token is on it, players are going to submit their highest bid. This isn't go round and around until somebody chooses to stop. This is submit 1 bid, next player can escalate or pass, next player can escalate or pass, until it goes back to the player whose marker is on there, and they can bid 1 less than the highest bid to take the thing. For example, if the star player, let's say, oh here, this player goes ahead and says, I'll bid 2. Next player says, I'm going to pass. Next player says, I'll go to 3. At that point, I can bid 2 and take the tile. I can go back to 1 less than the highest bid and take the tile. Why 1 less? Because when you pay for a bid, if you are paying to the person whose token is on it, they get the money. But if you're the person whose token is on it, you pay to the bank. So even though I'm technically only paying 2 instead of 3, in reality, I'm giving up 3 plus paying 2, which means my bid is functionally speaking 5. That first player gets a discount, but alternatively, they're giving up getting the money they would have gotten from the person who would have won instead, which introduces an interesting math to the game, where the player's benefits to any one thing is not always equal depending on the cost, especially as your tableau increases as well. Anyways, you're going to go ahead and resolve that. The player who wins this gets the right to choose where the next starting bid is going to be, which, by the way, does not always have to be the edge of a board. As you slowly clear out tiles, you'll be able to place in the center and work your way to wherever you want. They're also going to get a compass card. Those are going to help you get an extra action. You have 3 actions each round, plus 1 for each compass card you spend. So it's also an extra action, which is pretty awesome. Then you're going to go around and around with the rest of the tiles, auctioning them off in the same manner. Players are going to be taking these tiles, which come in 4 basic types. Well, for the most part, 4 basic types over here. We have these, which are going to be endgame scoring. These tiles, these purple ones, give you different ways of getting endgame scoring. They can be helpful early on, a little less useful because you're working on building up your tableau, but still helpful, especially because everyone has to determine the value of things. You might be able to get at a discount in those early rounds. Then we have these, which are ongoing. These give you their benefit every single round. Getting them in round 1 means you get the most benefit out of these. This card over here would give you 3 money every single round for the rest of the game. In round 1, that's basically 24 value on that card. How much are you willing to pay for it right now? That's a different conversation. Then we have these blue tiles over here. These are going to be one-time discards. You discard the card, and you get that thing right away. Look, I can get 4 scrolls. Over here, look, I can get 3 ships or 3 scrolls. They give you their benefit right away. And then lastly, we have these goods tiles over here, which will go into your personal display if you get them. You're going to immediately fill them with goods when you get them, and then from there, you also have the opportunity to refill them later using some of your board actions, and those goods are going to be helpful for actually improving your tableau. Goods are going to be the most dominant thing here because that's the main way you move up these tracks. When you're done with the bidding phase, where usually on average everyone has gotten one tile, I mean on average everyone gets one tile, but you might get two in one round, someone else might get none, other players choosing what things they're doing, whether they're hoarding money for future turns. You're going to then go and take your actions. Turn by turn, you're going to take one action until everyone's done, or playing compass cards to take extra actions, and those actions for the most part are going to relate to your tableau, because the most important action is moving up your grids. To do that, you're going to look at the goods cost over here. So for example, right now on this track, I have this good, which means I can move up this center track. I can pay that good, but I'll also have to pay a ship card. Players are going to start with ship cards, but you can get more ship cards through a variety of ways. For example, this will give you 4 ships, that will give you 3 ships, and there's a lot of actions you can take that will give you stuff. We'll come back to those in a second. You pay a good and you pay a ship for each good that you paid. I say for each because they go up in cost as you go down. And then you move your marker up to the next stack on that board, which will give you endgame points, but will also give you a better action. So that core action is going to be moving up your tracks, paying the associated goods, paying the associated ship costs, and getting a better result over here. Which brings us to the other actions you have. This action over here is going to give you ship cards, 1, 2, 3, 5, or 6, depending on how high you've gone up the track. This action is going to let you refill your depots and your trade posts. You have these, which we require during the course of the game, and you also have the trade posts over here, which we'll talk about how you get those soon, but basically those are going to go down over here, and you can refill the goods on them up to 1, 2, 4, 6, or 8 goods, depending on how high you've advanced on this track. This track will give you money, which is kind of important to be able to buy all those tiles you want, 4, 6, 8, 10, or 12 money. This track is going to let you get expedition cards as well as determining your hand size. At the first level, you can draw 1 and you have a hand size of 1. All the way to the bottom, you can draw 3 and have a hand size of 5. Your hand size is only checked when you take this action. There's ways to get extra cards. You only check your hand size when you do a draw action. But get a bunch of those, you can go ahead and get a lot of these, which will both have end game scoring over here. These animal icons on the bottom will be, not animals, these various icons on the bottom will be end game scoring, but they also give you immediate benefits. Get 5 money over here, move down tracks over here, get extra ships. There's going to be different things you can do on those cards that give you just immediate bonuses. And this last track is going to be how you get those trade depots. The way that's going to work is you're going to start by drawing 2 cards from the top of the deck, and you're going to add the number of scrolls listed over here. In this case 5, that's a very good draw. Before that, you'll have declared which trade post you're going for. There's 6, 8, 10, or 12 is the scroll cost. You're going to add to that the cost of whatever the 2 cards you drew are. You're also going to add your level. So for example, if you are in level 4, you would add 5 to that. And then you can also pay any additional scrolls from your hand. If you fail, you get a scroll, which is not good. I mean, it's good. It's better than nothing, but it's not worth the action you paid for it. So in general, try to make sure you have the ability to guarantee that you get that with those scrolls and backup for a poor draw on these. Those are going to be the actions you take on your tableau, which is why as you move up your board, you're basically getting better and better in different things. Are you going to be leaning heavily into this trade post? You might want to go up over here. Do you just want to have the most money to go ahead and buy all the cards you want? Do this track over here. You want all those ships so you can actually move up those tracks more efficiently without relying on the center board. You can see how each of these gives you a way to try to figure out how you're going to move up. You're going to need a little bit of everything, but which one you specialize on might be up to you. Additionally, you're going to have rewards over here. When you get all markers to a given level, you're going to get a compass card giving you a free action. That's going to be true all the way down the board. And the first person to level 4 and 5 is also going to get a free draw, which again is another good reason to specialize in one of these, in addition to the escalation in points you're going to get at the end of the game. That's basically the cycle. Go through a bidding arc, then go take 3 actions using compass cards to take additional actions. At the end of the 4th round, you're going to clear the display and put out the night tiles instead, which will give you, well, a new batch of tiles to go through. Then at the end of the game, you're going to score points for a variety of things. You're going to score points for how far you got up on these tracks over here. You're going to score points for the number of different trade posts you've got. You'll score points for the set collection you have on these. And you add up all your score and see who got the most points at the end of the game. That is how you play a game of Goa. Which means it's time for my review of what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like. In general, working your own tableau over here, trying to build your own specializations, that's going to be one of the main fun aspects of diving into this multiple times over, to try to find the pathway that between the player board, between what you're winning, and how this all ties together, you have different things you can go for. You can go for money. Money's fun. I like going for money in this game. The problem with money is the way the game is structured is money is just filtering into other players' hands. Oh, you're a big spender. You can spend 12 on that tile when everyone else is only spending 4 right now. Well, great. Someone else is getting that 12 if they accept your bid, which they probably are, which means at this point, that money is now in their hands for them to outbid you next turn. So on the one hand, getting a lot of money is very good and gives you a lot of edge. But on the other hand, it's just filtering money into the game. You're the big spender funneling money into the ecosystem. On the other hand, you can get a bunch of ships, but they don't give you a lot of money. You still need to buy those tiles. You need to get the goods you need. Ships on their own kind of don't do a lot. You really need a little bit of everything else. Going heavy on the expedition cards can be great, especially early game, because early game, your other tracks aren't as high. So some of the benefits you get, like getting 5 money early game when you currently are only getting 4, that's amazing. When you're getting 12 money instead, it's not quite as good to have a 5 money card. So these are very good early game, a little less so late game. These are great as well, but once you get all these, it's kind of not really that helpful. So it's really good for this one particular strategy. You could go that way. It's also good for the points you get, or you can subvert that and just get the various depots over here, the good depots instead. Additionally, the tiles that come out, the end game scoring things, those might give you other things to consider. There's one that makes the 1 point tiles. These tiles over here are worth a point, but you make them worth 3. Get a bunch of those, lean into that, do the trade depots. That could be a nice viable strategy. So there's a lot of different ways to pursue this, and a lot of that's going to be driven based on how the board's laid out, based on how the players drive the auctions. And I really enjoy that there's an escalation over the course of the game. And those first few rounds, you're like, ooh, is it worth 6? Is it worth 4? 7? Maybe it's worth 7. And then in later rounds, you're like 17. And nobody blinks an eye because you have the money in the ecosystem. The game does ramp up as money is entering the ecosystem. As you all get wealthy, the relative value of things does change, which makes sense. It's economically, it makes sense, it's satisfying, and it works well within the game. These expedition cards, they're a lot of fun. Like I said already, in addition to being a viable strategy, they also just give you so many different things, which can mean, like, there's a little bit of a risk-reward aspect with these. You can draw into these, and sometimes you don't get the cards that work for your strategy, but some of these can be incredibly satisfying. You go ahead, this is one of my favorite ones over here. Lets you pay a lot to be able to move straight up the track. It can be expensive. It's a great way of utilizing your money to be able to funnel it into the game instead of into other players' hands. But again, it's very expensive and it relies on you getting those cards. So the expedition cards as well are fun as well. So overall, there's just a lot of tableau building, a lot of auctions, and then as well as the players choosing the direction of the way the auction board flows. Because very often when you select a tile, you're not really, it's depending how you play, but for me at least, I'm not selecting a tile I want. I'm selecting a tile that I think is a high value that other players want. So I want other players to bid for that to give me as much money as possible. The first few rounds don't matter as much, but later on, the difference between taking a bid versus paying for yourself, it's often so much more worthwhile to take the bid. And that means selecting something other players want, or even just one particular player, can ensure that you have a lot of money coming your way. As far as things I don't like in the game, first of all, the game feels very slow at the beginning. Like when you start, you feel like, okay, great, I'm buying my tiles, and then I take my 3 actions. 3 actions sounds like a lot, but it's really not. Like those compass cards start to feel very essential very, very quickly, because you're like, okay, great, well, if I want to advance on a track, I need goods and I need ships. So that's 2 of my actions, and then a 3rd action to actually advance. So all 3 actions lets me advance once. Well, that doesn't feel like a lot. If there's only 8 rounds in the game, do I only get 8 advancements? Because don't get me wrong, there's more going on because you can get goods from the board. There's other ways around this, but for the most part, the basic math of an advance action is you need ships, you need goods, and you need to advance. That's 3 actions right there. That means you get 8 advancements the whole game. That's what it feels like. Now, later rounds, it does open up a bit more as you get more compass cards, as you get more goods coming in. There's things that will temper that, but it feels very slow at first. It feels like you can't get enough done fast enough, even if the math works out by the end game. I don't like feeling starved in games, and I find that the first half of a game of Goa, I often feel very starved. I almost always want to go for the expedition cards because they give you so much wild abilities that it feels like you get a little bit more out of the ecosystem. It's not always that you do, though, and that also can bring us another thing where there's no guarantee. This track over here is full of random chance as far as what you get, these cards. So they can be one of the more rewarding things early on, but it also can be a complete gamble and you might not get what you want in the game. There's also the trade depots. These rely on a degree of almost push your luck because you have 2 ways to kind of handle those. Not push luck's the wrong terminology. There's 2 ways to handle them. Way 1 is ensure you always have the scrolls you need to be able to account for a bad draw. You can get as low as 2 on these cards. They have a value of 1, so you can get as low as 2, or you can get as high as 6. That's a big range as far as these numbers, and you kind of have to plan around them. So when you're dealing with that, when you're doing the draws into them, you can always ensure you have the scrolls, but if you do that, you are forcing yourself to play with a little bit of a handicap because you have to build those up to be able to deal with a bad draw, or you're gambling. And the gambling part can really smack you in the face when it doesn't go right. In general, when I play this, I usually try to rely on at least a roll of 3 because that's statistically in my favor. It's like very, very likely to happen, but that means when it doesn't happen, you really messed up. And the fact that you even have to do that, like, do you rely on a roll of 4, a roll of 3? What's your personal comfort level, and how often does that play out? These are not these. The trade depots are very punishing when they don't work out, and I just don't like that feeling. It sucks in a game to like have one of your critical actions used and flop, so I play it safe with some degree of potential flop, and that might be giving me a handicap as opposed to somebody who just leans into it. Even if you upgrade this track, that math equation is still there as you try to get the trade outpost. So again, this is my least favorite track. This is my favorite track because of my personal playstyles. So I guess to the game's credit, it does allow you to play into your playstyles depending on how you build your tableau. As far as what I can see others not liking, first of all, on this board over here, when you get forced into tiles you don't like, the way someone can position this over here, and you're like, apparently the tile I'm bidding on is that. That's a sucky first game tile. Like, okay, great. I've got 1 over here, and then 2, and nobody cares. Oh, this is the one that turns a 1 into 3. That's the one over there. But this one over here, if nobody wants that at the beginning of the game, you're not getting a lot of money out of that tile, and so that can be a slightly frustrating aspect. And you can counter, well, then bid on first player. Sure, but there's 4 of you, only one person's going to get first player, and the other players might be forced into tiles that they don't love. As far as final thoughts on Goa, Goa feels like the kind of game that I would have loved 10 years ago. It does feel like an older design. It's fairly elegant and simple as far as how it all comes together. But also, and I should say, there's other things being added to the game, but I haven't played with those things. Even the solo mode, I haven't. So I am covering just the base game of Goa, not any extra things that were added to it. But as far as it goes, I think it's a fine game. It's a solid 3.5 out of 5. It's a good game. It's got a nice clean auction. It's got a smooth tableau. But I will say that when I play older games, sometimes it feels like, oh my gosh, I see why this game is an absolute classic. It's so elegant, it's so simple, it's amazing. Games like Ra, El Grande, certain games come to mind that really just seem to be beautiful simplicity is the word I'm looking for. Words I'm looking for. And then other games, I feel like, okay, great, you know, it was a great game, but I think I've seen better. Goa kind of falls into that category for me. It's been fun. I've played through this a bunch. It's a decent system, but it's one of those things that I feel I've already seen what I want to see out of it. It works together nicely. I feel a little cramped with my action economy, but outside of that, it all goes together. It all works. But it also doesn't feel like it sparks joy the way some either older titles or newer titles can instead. So for me, it's a 3.5 out of 5. It's a totally fine auction system with a good tableau, but one that doesn't necessarily wow me. As far as other game recommendations, I mentioned already Ra. Ra is an excellent auction game that if you're looking for a classic auction, one of the best in the auction genre, I highly recommend that. And if you're looking for an older game that also utilizes auctions with a lot more going on, but in a way that I personally find more satisfying than Goa, check out Lancaster. It's got this interesting overbidding mechanic with a kind of bumping people out. Very interesting, elegant game that is a lot of fun and also brutally mean at the same time. And I mentioned that Allplay is a channel sponsor. If you go to allplay.com, you can find games both from Allplay as well as from their partner publishers, and you can get $4 flat rate shipping if you're in the US. And check out High Society. If you're looking for another Reina Knizia, I mentioned Ra already, but if you're looking at another Reina Knizia auction game, High Society is a classic in which you're bidding on works of art while trying to not be the person who has the least money left at the end of the game. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.